Alright, today we're going to talk about the coordinate plane. That's our topic. In your learning target, you're going to be able to plot and identify points on a coordinate plane. You're also going to be able to identify quadrants of a coordinate plane. So, let's talk about characteristics of the coordinate plane. Every coordinate plane, the purpose of them is to represent some ordered pairs. An ordered pair is always represented as an X and then a Y. It's always separated with parentheses. You always do the X, write a comma, your Y. You must do that. It's the common language of all mathematics. When you're representing an ordered pair, which is a point on the coordinate plane, you have to have an X and a Y. And then we have the y-axis. The y-axis is the tall axis. And then you have the x-axis. The x-axis is the horizontal. This letter O represents the origin. It's where the two axes intersect, and the origin is always the point 0, 0. Your x is 0 and your y is 0. And then you have quadrants. The axes created a quadrant. Notice that the axes look like a T. Well, they created different sections. And we must know how to name these sections. The first one is always the top right. That's quadrant 1. And then you go in counterclockwise order. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. So there's 4 quadrants, and you need to know that. All right, let's do the first target here, identifying what quadrant a point lies in. So, what I want to do is I want to see where the x and y points are, and then identify the quadrant. So when I say points, I mean their number, the number they lie in, where I would place them, and then I'll identify the quadrant. And a very important thing, if it's on an axis, of any sort, it is not a quadrant. You call it an axis. And then you have to specify, is it the x-axis or does it lie on the y-axis? So let me summarize that. To identify quadrant a point lies in, I want to see where the x and y points are. What I mean is, where would the numbers lie? And then I identify the quadrant from there. I don't make a huge graph. I want to show you my easy strategy here. So I always make a mini coordinate plane. And I always write another one for me to reference so I can know what quadrants represent which section. So I have quadrant 1, quadrant 2, 3, and 4. So if I have the point 2, 3, remember 2 is my x, 3 is my y. I would need my x to be 2 is over here on the right hand side, y is 3 is up. So I would be in this top right quadrant, which represents quadrant 1. The point -3, 3. Again, I make a rough coordinate plane. My x is -3, that means I go to the left. My y is +3, which means I'm up, so I'm somewhere in this quadrant. That quadrant happens to be quadrant 2. You can represent it as the Roman numeral version, or you could just write the number. It's your call. Okay, the next one. My x is negative, so my x would be to the left. My y is positive, so my y would be up. So again, it looks like I am in quadrant 2. How I'm determining the quadrants, I'm going back to this initial one that I made, where I separated it into the quadrants. Okay, the next one, 7, -9. My x is positive, so I'm going to be to the right. My y is negative, so I'm going to be down. So I'm going to be over here. And that looks like it's quadrant 4 based on my diagram. Okay, the point 0, 6. Looks like my x is 0. That means I didn't move over anywhere. And my y is 6. So that means I went up. So I'm somewhere, let me do a different color. I'm somewhere up here. Well, this is not a quadrant. This represents an axis. So I would call this, it's on the y-axis. Remember, the y-axis is the tall one. The x-axis is the horizontal. Okay, the next one, -9, -4. Again, I draw a rough coordinate plane, so I'm not being perfect here. I'm just kind of roughing where the point would be. My x is negative, so it would be to the left. My y is negative, that means it would be down, so I would be somewhere over here. X to the left, y down. And that quadrant looks like it's quadrant 3. -12 and 5, again, draw a rough coordinate plane. My x is -12, that means I'm going to the left. My y is +5, it means I'm going up, so I'm somewhere in this area. That is quadrant 2. I know that because I'm looking at my diagram again. -6, 0. Make a rough diagram. So my x is to the left. -6 means I'm going to the left. My y is 0. That means I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going up and I'm not going down. So I'm somewhere like this. I'm on that axis. That axis is the horizontal. The horizontal axis is the x. So you would call this the x-axis. Okay, the next target here is going to be to graph points. We should probably have done this first. It makes the most sense, but that's okay. We'll just roll with it. So remember, a point is always the x and then the y. The first thing you want to do is go to the x from the origin. You always start at the origin. And second, you'll go to the y. Don't forget, x is first, y is second. Go to the x first, y second. Always start at the origin. So the point 3, 4. My x is +3. That means I'm going 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my point. So I'm just drawing the little dashes so you can see how I'm getting there. So this is my point A. I'll do the next one, -2, 0. So my x is -2. That means I go to the left. My y is 0. It means I don't go anywhere. So -2, always starting at the origin. -2 is right here, going up to up 0 means I stay right there. This is point B. Okay, the next one we'll call C. 7, -9. So my x is 7. That means I go 7 to the right. My y is -9. So it means I go down 9. So I'm going 7 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then 9 down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Here's my point. My point is 7, -9. Again, don't make the dashes. I'm only doing that to help you as a review. My last one, 0, -5, it means my x is 0. It means I don't go anywhere for the x. I don't go to the left and I don't go to the right. And my y is 5. So my x stays here at the center, and then I go down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Here's my point. And this we called D. Alright, so remember, don't make the dashes. It just makes it look messy. I only did that to help. Okay, this looks like it's a review page, so I will just maybe do a couple of them. Again, when you determine quadrants, you make a rough coordinate plane and plot it. If it lies on the line, it is an axis or axis. It's not a quadrant. And what you'll want to do is label your little diagram, quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then determine from there. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do those ones yourself since I modeled them on the first page. Okay, the last part here is plotting fraction points. All you want to do is estimate location. Don't be perfect. There is going to be no 100% right answer. We are all going to get a slightly different one, and that's okay. That is a-okay, that we're going to be a little different. So, for my first point, my x is 2/3, my y is 4. 2/3 means I'm almost to 1, but I'm not quite there. So I'm going to go to my 2/3 first. Remember, you always go to your x first, so 2/3 would be about right there, and then I go up 4. 1, 2, 3. Here is my main point. And it's hard because my marker is very big, so I'm going to try to redo this. Okay. So I'm not quite at 1. This is point A. I'm at x is about 2/3, y is 4. Okay, the next one, point B, x and y. So x is -1/3. That's like a -0.3. Well, -0.3 is a little bigger than 0. So I go a little bit to the left for my x, and then it looks like I'm almost 3 for my y. So I'm going to do that. So a little bit to the left for my x, and then almost to the 3 for my y. So 1, 2, almost to the 3. And I'm going to try to draw that a little prettier. Almost to the 3. Okay, I'm going to make that good. It's hard with the smart marker here. It's not a fine tip. Your pencil will be able to do it a lot better. And the last one, -3.5 and -1 4/5. This is like -1.8, remember, so it's almost to -2. And the -3.5 for my x is between the -3 and the -4. So that means I'm going to go to the left in between the -3 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm about right here. And then I'm going to go down to almost the -2. And I'm right there. We'll call this point C. So it gets a little tricky with the negatives because you have to remember that if you're -3.5, you're close to -4, not -2. So some kids mess that up. So you want to make sure that you're in between the right negative numbers. And that's it for today. Since we have like a minute left, I do want you to turn back to this page, and I'm going to do 2 more with you, and then I want you to finish it up on your own. So I'm going to do this 0.8 and -3. Again, that's my x, the -3 is my y. I make a rough coordinate plane. My x is 0.8, that means I would be to the left. My y is silly me, I would be to the right. My y is -3, that means that I would be down. So to the right and down would be over here somewhere. That looks like it's quadrant 4. Okay, let's do this example, 3.5 and 0. My x is 3.5, my y is 0. Make a rough coordinate plane. My x means I would go to the right. My y means I stay. So I would be right here. This is not a quadrant. It is the horizontal axis. The horizontal axis is the x-axis. Okay, I want you to take the last little bit of time and determine the quadrants of the remaining 4 that you have left.